Hello, and welcome to the Peter Mackay Motorsport podcast. Thank you very much indeed for tuning into this episode. First of all, apologies for the little hiatus for the podcast over the last few weeks. It's been very, very busy here at Peter Mackay Motorsport HQ. Lots going on with commentary, writing, and all kinds of fun stuff like that. And though for those of you who listened to my interview with Ronan Pearson, the Mini Challenge driver, local driver here in Scotland, I hope you enjoyed that interview. And Ronan, I can say, had a very good weekend on his return back to racing at Knockhill, which we will talk about a little bit later on. But thanks for bearing with us, and normal service will be resumed with lots of chat about all different kinds of motorsport. Now, today, I want to talk all about the British Touring Car Championship, which has had an incredibly exciting start to the season, albeit delayed, of course. But we're seeing quite a battle emerging for the championship in the British Touring Car Championship this year between Colin Turkington, Ash Sutton, and local Scot Rory Butcher. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the British Touring Car Championship, I'll just give you a little bit of a summary about what the championship is all about. Those who might remember in the mid-1990s, the Super Touring era, where every manufacturer seemed to be in the British Touring Car Championship, spending tens of millions of pounds on a domestic series. You had Vauxhall, Volvo, Ford, Renault, and all kinds of things like that. And it's often been referred to as Formula One with mudguards, but around the turn of the millennium, it all got a little bit too expensive, and the sport effectively imploded and needed rebuilt again. And the British Touring Car Championship has really risen back to, I think, even beyond its former prominence. Certainly the sporting product offered by the British Touring Car Championship is better than it has ever been. And you have cars from all kinds of different manufacturers. You have Fords, you have Hyundais, BMWs, Hondas, Infinitis, Mercedes, VWs, Vauxhalls, Toyota, and many more. The difference now, though, is that on the most part in the British Touring Car Championship, you'll see what are called privateer race teams taking part. So what that means is basically a private company, a private race team that build their own race car and bring in drivers to drive them, and have to rely on their commercial sponsorships to allow the effort to run. Whereas in the old days, it would be a factory effort from Ford, or a factory effort from Honda, or from Volvo, or whoever it might be. Now, there are one or two manufacturer-backed efforts left, like, for example, the Yuasa Honda team, the Team Dynamics Honda team, also the Speedworks Toyota team as well. But in general, and also BMW, West Surrey Racing BMW, but in general, most of the cars taking part are independent efforts. So also the regulations that the British Touring Car Championship runs to is slightly different. They run a completely unique car which you will only find in the UK and only used for the British Touring Car Championship, which is called an NGTC, which stands for New Generation Touring Car. And basically the idea with that car is that it uses a lot of common parts. So all the cars on the grid use a lot of common parts, so there's no advantage in spending lots of money on fancy brakes or fancy gearboxes or electronic systems or what have you. So a large proportion of the components in the car are the same. However, you do have a little bit of a difference depending on what the road car that is used. So, for example, Ford, they have their Ford Focus ST, which is a front-wheel drive car. So, therefore, the touring car will be front-wheel drive. But BMW and Infiniti, for example, they have rear-wheel drive road cars to base from. So, therefore, the touring car is rear-wheel drive. And that, this year, has been of more importance than ever, the difference between front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive and the performance advantages for both of those types of car. One of the best things as well about the British Touring Car Championship is that you can watch it for free on terrestrial television here in the United Kingdom. So on ITV, one of the free-to-air channels in the United Kingdom, basically the whole of Sunday is given up to the British Touring Car Championship paddock. The coverage starts just before 11 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, so you can sit with your breakfast and your cup of coffee watching the first race of the British Touring Car Championship, and have all kinds of great support races like the JCW Mini Challenge, the Porsche Carrera Cup, Ginetta Juniors, British Formula 4, and many others. It's a very fully packed day of action, and it runs through to nearly 6 o'clock in the evening. So it's great to see motorsport given so much airtime. There's no other form of motorsport that is given so much airtime, particularly on free to air television, and that's a big part of the attraction for the championship. One of the other cool things about the British Touring Car Championship is that you have 3 short sprint races throughout the day. So the drivers qualify on a Saturday, and then on the Sunday they come in and have 3 races. What's most exciting though is in the third race of the day, there is a reverse grid where the grid is jumbled up, and that often throws up a lot of, well, as you can imagine, a lot of different results. So the final part to the puzzle, which makes up the recipe of the British Touring Car Championship right now, is success ballast. So coming into any particular weekend, the championship leader will carry the maximum amount of weight ballast in their car, and that at the moment is 60 kilograms. So it's a big penalty to carry, and then all the drivers all the way down the field will carry slightly less ballast until they get down to no ballast at all. So for example, with Colin Turkington leading the championship, Ash Sutton second, and Rory Butcher third, Turkington would carry 60 kilograms, Ash Sutton slightly less, and Rory Butcher slightly less again, and so on. And that ballast is actually, after the first race of the weekend, is adjusted for the second race. So whoever the winner of the first race was, they have to carry the maximum ballast for the second race. And the idea is that basically makes it basically prevents any particular driver from running away with the championship, and also from winning 3 races across the weekend. So you're going to see lots of different winners. There's lots of opportunity for drivers to go out and win races. Also, for if you're a championship contender, it's also about being able to maximise the points that you score over the course of the weekend. And although it might sound contrived, I can tell you it is certainly not, and it gives a really good racing spectacle. So, who are the championship contenders this year in the British Touring Car Championship? Well, so far, after a few rounds, we've been to Donington, we've been to Brands Hatch, and we've been to Oulton Park, and with just this weekend past, we've went to Knockhill here in Scotland. So after 4 rounds of the championship, 12 races, we have 3 standout championship contenders. Colin Turkington, he leads the championship right now on 182 points. But Ash Sutton, not long behind him on 172, and Rory Butcher on 139. Colin Turkington, well, he's the defending champion. He's already a 4-time British Touring Car champion, and if he were to win the championship this year, he would become the most successful British Touring Car Championship driver of all time. He's currently tied on 4 championships apiece with the great Andy Rouse. So whatever you want to say about Colin Turkington, he has an incredible record behind him, and he's been racing in the championship for, on and off at least, for nearly 20 years now, and he's a super quick, super consistent driver as well. He races for the factory BMW team for West Surrey Racing, and last year their new BMW 3 Series, well, it was an absolute rocket, and it came into the championship and quite honestly dominated. And this year it's been equally as quick. However, there has been another rear-wheel drive machine that has come to the fore, and that is the Infiniti Q50, run by Bob Moffat Racing, Laser Tools Racing. But a big part of that is due to a driver that they've signed, Ash Sutton, the 2017 British Touring Car champion, who won in, if you remember, the Subaru Levorg estate. That was Ash Sutton who won the championship in that car as Jason Plato's teammate. But he's moved to the Infiniti, which interestingly, the Infiniti brand in Europe has actually been discontinued effectively. You cannot buy a new Infiniti car anymore in the United Kingdom. So it's strange actually seeing one of these cars out on the grid, even though there is no road car equivalent to buying new anymore. But that's a good insight into the way that the British Touring Car Championship model works, that you don't necessarily have to be selling a road car behind it. And now it's more for a team like Laser Tools. They're an independent team that fund the outfit themselves. They looked at the proportions of the Infiniti. It's a very similar proportion car to the BMW. It's a rear-wheel drive car critically, which does, I think, give a little bit of a performance advantage, and that's what they've decided to do. So interesting how they landed on that particular car, the Infiniti. And Ash Sutton has really made that car work over the season. Won quite a few races already, including 2 at Knockhill this weekend. But Rory Butcher, the local driver here in Scotland, he's had an incredible season so far in the brand new Ford Focus ST. So that car is completely box fresh. It's been freshly developed in a very short space of time by Rory, and well, it's been a bit of a rocket actually. It's been the standout front-wheel drive car in the series, and of course Rory comes into this season in 2020 with a lot of pedigree, a lot of credentials behind him. Of course, after a dramatic last round at Brands Hatch at the end of last season, he came out on top in the 2019 Independent British Touring Car Championship, and also won the Jack Sears Trophy for the most successful driver to come into the season without a podium, and he claimed 3 race wins in the 2019 championship. Already in 2020 he's already won 2 races, and this new Ford Focus ST looks really, really strong. But Rory's done all the development work on the car and really loving the new car as well, and is doing a great job of getting up there and bloodying the nose of the rear wheel drive machines, in particular the BMW. And actually Rory's been on pole position twice already, both at Brands Hatch and at Oulton Park. However, it's not just about these 3 men. There are I think two outside contenders for the championship. Tom Ingram in the very nice looking Toyota Corolla, the Toyota Speedworks with Ginsters. Yes, that's the same Ginsters pasties, the service station pasty company. That's a pretty good sponsor to have. And you'll see the Ginsters car, the Flying Ginsters car, Toyota Corolla. And Tom Ingram done a lot of mileage actually up at our local circuit here at Knockhill, and they're really developing that new Toyota well. And at certain circuits, it's really, really fast. Watch out for him when we get to Silverstone, because he's going to be quick there. Also, Dan Camish in the Yuasa Honda Team Dynamics Civic Type R. Dan had such a consistent season last year in British touring cars, and came to within half a lap of winning the British Touring Car Championship last year at the final round, but unfortunately a brake failure at one of the fastest parts of the Brands Hatch circuit sent him careering off the road and allowed Colin Turkington to come through and win the championship. Incredibly dramatic circumstances, but Dan Camish, he's really answered those kind of demons very well this season. He's had a lot of bad luck. He's had some technical failures, some tyre failures, as has Rory Butcher as well. 2 tyre failures at Brands Hatch. But Dan Camish has been very impressive. But there clearly seems to be, for cars like the Ford, which Rory Butcher drives, the Toyota, which Tom Ingram drives, and the Honda of Dan Camish, all of these cars are front-wheel drive, and it seems to me that the advantages of the rear-wheel drive cars of Ash Sutton and Colin Turkington are really, that was particularly at Knockhill this weekend, it was particularly prevalent. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about the ballast system, the success ballast in British touring cars. So the most successful drivers are given the highest weight ballast penalty. And of course, the more weight in a car, the slower it will be. It will not accelerate as fast, it will not stop as fast, and it will not change direction as well. But what is being found over the course of this season so far is that for whatever reason, the rear-wheel drive machines seem to be able to carry the weight that little bit better than the front-wheel drive machines. And we saw that in the opening race at Knockhill on Sunday, where Rory Butcher was carrying quite a lot of ballast as the third place driver in the championship, and that really hampered his progress in qualifying and in the race, where he finished fifth. And actually, he was very happy with that fifth position in considering the position he was in. But it was quite ominous to see the BMW of Turkington and particularly the Infiniti of Sutton, both of those drivers clearing away from the field, winning by quite a considerable margin in British Touring Car terms of 3.5 seconds, which is a long way in a British Touring Car Championship sprint race. But they were carrying maximum weight, both of them, so for first and second in the championship. So really ominous about for the rear-wheel drive cars. The rear-wheel drive cars, they do launch off the line a little bit better. They do seem to put their power down a little bit better, and also particularly out of the very slow first gear hairpin at Knockhill, where they're heading back uphill, the push from the rear-wheel drive cars, it was visibly clear to see standing track side this weekend. The rear-wheel drive cars got a real advantage over the front-wheel drive cars. However, we did see for example, Brands Hatch, the front-wheel drive machines having maybe an ever so slight edge as well, just the nature of the circuit there. So it's going to swing back and forward throughout the season, but it appears that the rear-wheel drive cars might just have an ever so slight edge. This weekend at Knockhill, I had the fantastic opportunity to actually get along to the circuit for both days. Unfortunately, the race was closed to fans due to ongoing restrictions for obvious reasons, which we won't mention. But I was very luckily invited to go along to the race on Saturday with one of Rory Butcher's major sponsors, a gentleman called Alan Walk, who runs a company called William Walk Logistics and Recycling. And Alan has supported Rory since his days in Carrera Cup in 2011 and has been a supporter ever since. Alan also backs Ronan Pearson in the JCW Mini Challenge as well. So although it was really sad at Knockhill not to see any fans there, it was quite a special opportunity to get behind the scenes and go into the paddock in those circumstances and see what was going on, and got to have a little bit of a chat with Rory, and he's in very much in buoyant mood. He's very happy with his new Ford Focus ST, and interestingly, although Knockhill is his local circuit, actually Rory spent a majority of his early racing career racing GT cars in Europe, so actually doesn't have a mileage advantage around Knockhill, certainly not in a race car anyway. But he does have, he says that, you know, when he went out in practice with the Ford for the first time around Knockhill, he kind of has this really good reference point, at least, of how a car behaves, and he's very, very happy with how the Ford is behaving. And actually, for someone fighting for the British Touring Car Championship, he looked in an incredibly relaxed mood. And Rory's father, Derek, who owns the circuit, and his lovely wife Joy, looked after us very well in their trackside lodge as we watched qualifying as well, which was a brilliant experience and very much appreciated indeed. But really, this weekend at Knockhill, it was really all about Ash Sutton. He put the car on pole with a very, very fast lap time in qualifying, and throughout practice as well, he just looked like he had that extra edge, just that 1/10 or possibly 2/10 on the whole field, and he managed to convert that pole position in qualifying to 2 race victories, and of course the second race victory of the weekend on maximum success ballast. So ominous performance for the rest of the field. And following the weekend, Ash Sutton said, and I quote, he says, "This is the best touring car I've ever driven." So that gives you an idea just how happy he is with that Infiniti Q50. Interestingly, that Infiniti Q50, watching trackside, actually quite a bit more supple and quite a bit softer than some of the other cars. When you were seeing some of the cars launching over the big curbs at Knockhill and on the brakes and turning into a corner, a lot of the other cars a lot stiffer and a lot flatter through the corners, but the Affinity would pitch a lot more. It would pitch more on the brakes, it would pitch more in the corners, but obviously that working really, really well for not only Ash Sutton but his teammate Aidan Moffat, the Scotsman as well. You could really see them both able to push the car on, and perhaps that little bit of extra movement in the car giving them just the feel that they need. So really interesting to see that from trackside, and it doesn't necessarily come across on the television either. So it was a great weekend for Ash Sutton, closing the gap in the championship up to Colin Turkington, now only 10 points behind. But Turkington did everything he needed to do. He had, although it looked like Sutton had the pace all weekend long, Colin Turkington does what Colin Turkington does, he just followed, he made sure that he had the maximum amount of points, finished in second place behind Ash Sutton twice, and then finished ahead of him in the final reverse grid race. Colin Turkington finishing 9th, Ash Sutton finishing 11th in that race because both drivers had started further back in the pack after the reverse grid. So Colin Turkington maximised everything he could, and I'm sure he will get his opportunity at some of the other circuits. Perhaps when we head to Thruxton next time out, we could see a different complexion altogether. But race 3, well, it was all about Rory Butcher. As I said, Ash Sutton winning by 3.5 seconds in the opening race, or Ash Sutton and Colin Turkington 3.5 seconds ahead of the rest of the field in race 1. Now that's a big gap in British touring car racing. But Rory Butcher in race 3 won by 6.4 seconds. An absolutely dominant performance from Rory. He started second on the grid, got a brilliant start, and managed to beat Senna Proctor into turn 1, and then simply just checked out. He's so much quicker than the rest of the field and was able to run in clean air and show exactly what both he and his Ford Focus ST are capable of, and we've seen this leading pace from Rory throughout the season so far, and it very, very pleasing, I think, for Rory. Finished a strong 5th in race 1, but in race 2 really got a little bit frustrated and got involved in a couple of little skirmishes and ended up finishing 10th, and he was vocally he was really not pleased with himself in those races, but came out in race 3, reset, and just completely dominated the field. And that win is critical for his championship chances, because I think if he'd come away from Knockhill this weekend without a race victory, given the pace that he's got in the car and how good he is around the circuit, well, I think that would have really played on his mind. And of course, we've got quite a long break now. We've got 3 weeks until the next round at Thruxton on the 19th and 20th of September. So good for Rory to go out of this home race with a victory in the new car, and can go into Thruxton buoyed by that great result. So that's where we stand right now in the British Touring Car Championship. Like I say, if you live in the United Kingdom, you can watch it for free on ITV on a Sunday afternoon. It's brilliant entertainment, and the great thing is that you'll recognise the cars on on the screen. It's not like Formula One, where they're space age machines that don't bear any resemblance to a road car. If you drive a Honda Civic, there's a Honda Civic on the track. If you drive a Mercedes A-Class, there's one of those. If you drive a Vauxhall Astra, there's one of those as well, and so on. There's pretty much any normal family saloon car or family hatchback. Normally you will see one racing in the British Touring Car Championship, and I think that's a big part of its appeal. It's a relatable series, and most importantly of all, the sporting product on show is fantastic. I can't urge you enough to tune in and watch it. If you're out with of the UK, I'm sure there are plenty other options to try and get hold of the British Touring Car races. I think a few countries do have some sort of television deal, so do check that out and get and see if you can watch some of the British Touring Car Championship action. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Peter Mackay Motorsport podcast. It's a pleasure to be back and talk about some racing. We've had over the lockdown period, I've been incredibly lucky to have some really, really special guests who volunteered their time to come onto the show. Of course, spoke to Ronan Pearson, JCW Mini Challenge driver, a couple of weeks ago. About a month ago or so, spoke to one of Scotland's greatest ever sportsmen, Alan McNish, 3-time Le Mans winner, multiple Sebring 12-hour winner, multiple Petit Le Mans winner, and so on. Won everything there is to win in sports car racing. And Alan gave up over an hour of his time to tell his career story, and it really, really interesting chap. I also spoke to Nick Harris, the voice of MotoGP for so many years. That was a pinch myself moment, I'll be honest. And so you can look back via your chosen podcast provider, subscribe to the show for free, and you can go back and look at all of the episodes that we've had and all of the feature interviews that we did during lockdown. There will be plenty more feature interviews throughout the coming months, and we'll be talking a lot more about the packed calendar of racing that we have at the moment, with the condensed racing calendar due to the early delays at the beginning of the year. You can also check out my commentary work. I commentate 3 or 4 times a week on the ever popular sim racing paddock over the last little while, and hopefully going to be getting to the circuit to do some commentary in the very near future as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But finally, all it leaves me to say is thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you again on another episode of the Peter Mackay Motorsport Podcast.